Hello everyone and welcome to Whisky Wednesday. We're back on malt whiskies, but it's still in the affordable category, and we're going to talk about Glengoyne today. I had to trove through the Whisky Wednesday archives. We haven't spoken about Glengoyne since when Joe used to run the channel, and it was a little miniature pack of like the 10-year-old, 12 and an 18, or a 12 and a 15, something like that. And I thought, well, that's nice, but we've grown a lot since then. So many more people have come in. Some of you have probably watched that video. But it'd be nice to give a bit of attention to those whiskies. And most of the time, I don't buy like the introductory level to whiskey brands, because normally they're 40%, normally chill filtered and coloured. This isn't. This is non-chill filtered. It's not coloured, but it is 40%. I always go for like the 12 or a 16, something the one that excites me the most. But in all honesty, it's been a very long time since I tried Glengoyne. I think last time I tried it was the 18-year-old when I was in Canada, 2 years ago actually. Bit too sulphured, wasn't for me. I don't mind sulphur, but that particular batch of 18, don't know what batch it was just really big on the sulphur. But I thought, it's so well regarded amongst whiskey drinkers and customers in the shop I work in. So I thought we should give a whole bottle a go and just see what's going on with it. They've had a slight redesign. There are geese everywhere on the bottle. There's one on the front, there's one on the back. As you know, Glengoyne means Valley of the Geese. The original name was the Burnfoot distillery, and then due to a clerical error, I think it was established in 1833, but I think this happened just before it. It was called Glen Guin, G-U-I-N. And then essentially in 1833 or just after, it changed to Glengoyne properly. As we've said, this is a 10-year-old with no colouring, with no chill filtration, at 40% alcohol. And it is something which is due a bit of a recourse. It's had a design change. So instead of the more subtle box, you now get this big bright orange thing, so it stands out much more on a shelf. And it's owned by Ian MacLeod Distillers, who also own Smokehead and Rosebank now, and another one. What's the other one they own, which is quite famous? That'll come back to me. I'm sure you'll all remind me in the comments. I've had many things to remember in the last couple of days, and Glengoyne is certainly one of them. But yeah, Valley of the Geese, it's a very unusual distillery. The stills are located in the highlands. The warehouses are located in the lowlands, thanks to that highland line which divides Scotland. So it technically is a whiskey of two regions, although I think technically they just class it as a highland. But it has very lowland qualities to it. It is typically this soft, fruity, very approachable whiskey, which contains 0 peat. They are one of only, not many, I think maybe 3 distilleries in Scotland who don't use any peat to dry their barley. They just use hot air. So for you fans out there, for you people who aren't fans of peated whiskey, if you buy anything from Glengoyne, unless they do a peated release, you have no issues whatsoever. But let's dive in, let's smell and taste and see what's going on with Glengoyne. Yeah, if you gave me that blind, I would lead towards it being a lowland whiskey. It's full of like lemon and like castor sugar and like really soft kind of fruit skins. Lemon in particular. I don't know what it is about lowland whiskey and lemon. It's just in all of them. Like, even though this is a highland, it has that characteristic of that big kind of juicy, thirst quenching kind of lemonade style. There's some sweet barley, almost like a barley sugar cordial, and almost like a digested biscuit note. Quite malty, the tiniest bit of salt, but nothing which would give you an instinct to think it's a really savoury whiskey, just there as a contrast. Yeah, quite grapefruity and lemon, you know, these bittersweet, but when used in the right way, quite thirst-quenching flavours. I think the cask makeup for this is a bit unknown. On their website it says ex-European oak and ex-American oak, which would indicate sherry cask influence. From that colour alone, it could be sherry cask. They could just be very old, well-used barrels. But the smells on this would indicate significantly more bourbon oak influence. So there could be some European oak in there. They're not going to be European oak bourbon casks because I'm pretty sure that has never been done. But if it is sherry, the barrels have probably been used quite a bit. There's almost nothing regarding like raisin or chocolate or these dried fruits you associate with European oak. But nonetheless, it could be in there. But the cask makeup isn't exact, or isn't listed exactly. That's got a very full-bodied approach to it, even at 40%. You put it on your tongue and it just spreads. It has this beautiful weight to it. Those kind of bittersweet citrus notes disappear. It is much more led by that malted barley, that barley sugar. Yeah, extremely barley driven. I think on the bottle they make a point of saying they don't bottle anything under 6 years old. Yeah, so the barrels themselves have been prepared for 6 years. So they've had a lot of seasoning go through them. But yeah, it's not a very typical Highland in any way. There's not that characteristic spice. There's not that kind of big citrusy taste to it. It is much more malty and warm and comforting. I don't know if that's the spirit coming through because it is only a 10-year-old, or if it is some of that possible European oak in there, but there's like I always call it like a funkiness, like a European oak funkiness. You can't really nail it down, but it has like an older quality to it. And we know there will be older whiskies in here, but there is like a nice kind of soft cheese, like getting a bit pretentious here, but like a Comté cheese, like a waxy cheese quality going on with it. Yeah. Significantly more complex than I think what the label would have you believe, and the ABV number 2. One more taste and then we'll score it. Nice bit of fizz on the finish. Almost like an agave syrup taste to it. Because it's free of any sort of over-the-top filtering, the spirit does come through a little bit more, which I quite enjoy. I don't mind that in younger malt whiskies. And it adds to like that thickness and the body, which you get from Glengoyne across the range. Drying finish. Still really good body. Some slightly herby notes coming into it. Very reminiscent of Bao Blair's, like what was the 2005 and the current 12-year-old, but with just a lower ABV, a bit more dialed back. Slightly rosemary, slightly thyme, etc, etc. That's lovely, and I think you can get this from anywhere from 30 to 35 pounds a bottle, which isn't bad at all in the current market. That is delicious. And it's something which I'm kind of ashamed we've not reviewed more of and sooner. But nonetheless, if you think you would like that whiskey, you should certainly go out and get it. I'm going to give that a solid 7.5. I think it's delicious. Certainly worth your time if you've never had a Glengoyne before. And much like the 2 previous whiskies we've done with the Cutty Sark and with the Smoky Black, you don't have to spend a fortune to get really good whiskey. Some would argue that the Smoky Black and the Cutty Sark aren't good whiskey. I would go against that. They're good. They're just made for a price point. But between 30 and 35 pounds, that is a standard single malt to have in your cabinet for whenever you just want some, is delicious and very much worthy of all the awards and plaudits it gets. But yeah, that's Glengoyne 10. That's a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers.